Well, I'm glad to say we've got some very distinguished people in our Friday People audience here tonight.
Hang on.
Do you know you've put that straight in my... Do you mind... I know what that's for. And I know what you're after. You want to get this show on the road yourself, don't you? Yeah. And why not? Off you go. Right. You tell us who's in the programme tonight. I'll look after that.
Firstly, meet Captain Bill Mitchell. Now, Bill, do you know where it is yet?
I haven't a clue.
No?
Watson.
Fair enough, right. Well, he's the only person that's had a sneaky look at this week's picture. Bill Mitchell, who knows all about Sherlock Holmes, as we'll find out later in the programme. And we also have Jenny George with us as well. What marvellous, cuddly characters. Say hello. Brilliant. And Dominique Levac, of course, who you know from the first programme. She's going to be giving us a tune later as well. We also have Rinaldi and Karina here, who are a couple of acrobats, as we'll see you performing later. Good evening. Welcome along to the programme. And a lady here... Now, what is it that you do again?
I memorise birthdays. I have memorised 800, but I don't know if whether I will be able to mention 800 tonight.
You've memorised 800
yes,
birthdays?
Yes.
Can you believe this? Margaret, where are you from? Margaret Perrow,
From Truro.
From Truro?
From Truro, yes.
Well, I'm sure all of Cornwall's going to be rooting for you this evening and hoping that you are going to remember as many birthdays as you can.
Yes, well, I should do my best.
Can I introduce you to our soundproof booth that we've had made specially for you? Come along, and Margaret is going to be reciting all these birthdays this evening, we hope. So if your memory holds out. Introduce you to Paul as well, Margaret. Watch your head. This is Paul. Now, Paul's going to be clicking away to make sure that you remember them, and also we'll be able to find out how many you managed to get through during the course of the evening. So Paul meets Margaret. Margaret,
hello,
Paul. Are you comfy?
Yes, fine, thanks.
Well, do you want to start? Where do you start from, January?
Right, start from January the 1st up until December the 31st, if I...
Well, off you go then. Let's have a start. Off you go.
January the 1st, Peter Guy. January the 2nd, Roger Miller, Ray Moore, David Bailey. January the 3rd, Victoria
Marvellous.
Principal.
Well, we'll leave Margaret to that for the time being. But at the top of the programme, we were setting up our special studio setting for our model. I'm pleased to say she's with us now, so please welcome Helen Chambers. What a marvellous young lady. Well, there have been Crockett and Tubbs, there's been Starsky and Hutch, Cagney and Lacey, Batman and Robin, but of course the granddaddies of them all, I'm talking about crime-fighting duos, has to be Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. And I'm pleased to introduce you this evening to a gentleman who is all about Holmes and Watson. In fact, up until last weekend, he was the National Secretary of the Sherlock Holmes Society. So from Lopen in Somerset, Captain Bill Mitchell. Bill, what's the business about Sherlock Holmes, the fascination?
I think the business about Sherlock Holmes is that, above all things, he was a real person. All the other paper detectives, dear old Poirot with his moustaches and egg-shaped head and all the rest of it, very good stories, but nobody really believed in them. But you and I know that Holmes and Watson actually lived in Baker Street, and for all I know, live there still.
Of course, and of course Baker Street still gets a lot of mail from
It
Holmes,
does indeed,
it
does indeed.
Conan Doyle, let's come across Holmes for a minute. Conan Doyle, of course, has a great attachment with this area, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. When he was a very young doctor, he was in partnership with an extraordinary man called Budd, who practiced down in Durnford Street. Unfortunately, Dr. Budd gave his patients coloured water and charged them half a guinea for the privilege, and Conan Doyle, being a fairly honest man, really couldn't stick this, and so after trying out in Tavistock, where he failed because he found that there were more doctors than patients there, he took off for Portsmouth. But subsequently, of course, he came and stayed here on many occasions.
Now, the Durnford Street you mentioned, of course, is in Plymouth.
That's right.
Was it during one of these trips to Plymouth that he got the idea for The Hound of the Baskervilles?
Actually, no. He wrote The Hound of the Baskervilles many, many years later. In fact, after the awful business at the Reichenbach Falls, when Holmes and Moriarty had fallen over the top. But Conan Doyle rather wisely brought Holmes back to life.
And of course you've been to the falls, haven't you?
Yes, I was there last month. We unveiled a statue to Sherlock Holmes, which again must be proof that the man was a real chap.
What about, now we've mentioned about the books, what about the films? I mean, do you like the Sherlock Holmes films, and who was your best
Yes, we
portrayal
do. We a society will travel very long distances to see shows. Of course, there's a musical on right now at Exeter, as you know, on the Sherlock Holmes. And the series, the Granada television series, of course, have attracted great approval from Sherlockians. We had an excursion up there the other day.
Lovely. Well, I tell you what, I've got a Friday person badge for you, Bill, and I shall give you one of those, and I'll give you a couple as well, because I think you ought to have a couple of badges for Holmes and Watson. So there you go. If you can take those back and give them to them for us.
Thank you very much.
Bill Mitchell. Dominique Levac. Marvellous stuff. Now then. if the thought of all those winter lyrics made you want to cuddle up to something warm, then perhaps it would be a teddy bear. Perhaps it would be our next guest, Jenny George, from Newton Abbot.
That's right.
And I just got to check the old idiot board here. Now, you are the leader of the Good Bears of the World UK, Torbay and South West Den.
That's right, it's a bit of a mouthful.
What is it that you do with these bears?
We give away teddy bears to people of all ages to give them comfort, particularly those people who are in stressful circumstances, people who have suffered bereavement or illness. We give a lot away to children in hospitals, particularly to old people. We gave away over 80 bears last year.
That's right. Isn't that marvellous? What a marvellous story. Love it. Right. Now, apart from those ones, you also have your own favourites. I know you brought a few along with you this evening. Some of these here, look. Now, who are these little guys? Now, who's this one here, the little blue one?
That one is Vienna Bear, and I rescued him from the bottom of a display cabinet where he looked rather lonely and trapped.
Definitely not lonely now, because, of course, he's got all his friends with him today.
That's right.
And his little mate across here, the other small one.
That one was also rescued, actually. He was lying in a shoebox on the shelf, and he'd been there for 30 years. And he was in a flannelette nightgown, bit arthritic in one leg, but now I call him Bright Eyes, and I fancy that he looks surprised at everything he sees because, of course, he was in darkness with a lid on the shoebox.
Well, perhaps with all the lights today, maybe we should have given him some sunglasses, perhaps. Now, who's this guy, the big white one?
Oh, that one's called Persil, and he's an Alresford bear from Hampshire. And he's called Persil because he's whiter than white, and he also composes symphonies in his spare time.
Oh, fair enough, right. Well, off from him, this guy's the superstar, isn't he? Now, this is your favourite, quietly.
Oh.
Who is this?
Well, this is Juicy
Show them to our friends over here, look.
Juicy Applebell.
This is Juicy Applebell?
Yes. I named him when I was 3, hence the rather strange name.
And a recording star as well?
Well, yes. You've made an audio cassette of a children's story, Juicy Applebell Goes to Vienna.
Right. Also, of course, with his Uncle Chris on guitar on it, who happens to be with us this evening, old Uncle Chris over there.
That's right.
Eric Clapton of Derry's Cross in Plymouth.
That's right.
So, before any... I must give you one of these, and... Because you're definitely a Friday person, can I give Juicy Applebell one as well?
Oh, he would love one.
Yes,
He'd
there
be
we go.
thrilled to
This next
bits.
got one. So
Lovely.
marvellous. Thank you, Jenny, for joining us this evening. How did you get on with last week's competition? It had a real mixed bag. Some of you thought it was Truro Cathedral, some thought it was Buckfast Abbey. It was Exeter Cathedral. And I'm pleased to say that Ken has last week's winner with him now. It's Andrea Barber.
Yes, indeed. I'm very happy.
Oh, Jenny, little present from us for you there. I don't know, can we see this? There we are, a little present there for you.
Oh, thank
now
you
then,
very much.
this
May I
week's
give you this
caption-
as well?
Thank you. This week's caption, thank you. Here we are, competition time. Any idea where that is? Have a good look there. And any idea at all where that might be? If you think you know, it's not too tough this week. If you think you know where it is, then drop us a line. It's Friday, people. Derry's, TSW Derry's Cross, Plymouth, PL1 2SP.
Thank you for Margaret's result.
Yes, we've just gone past Alison Moyet, and we're well into June now as well. How many have we done, Paul, so far?
She's doing well. She's 376.
376 dates remembered so far. It's marvellous. Marvellous. Ken,
With that result...